Hey everybody, my name's Kyle, and this is the Untypical Heroes! I'm excited! We're playing 4 Shenanigans. It's a cartoonish Dark Souls tabletop role-playing game. Let's jump right into it. We got Andy. She is a new toon. She's a stand-up comic, and she also found out just recently that she's a Toonomancer. She can harness Lunium to bend reality to her very whims. Now, there's not a lot of Lunium, which is why she is on an adventure to figure out where it's going and what is happening to it. And that adventure has taken her to the Hyqueous Vaults. The Hyqueous Vaults, they were told by a retired adventuring Toonomancer named Turtle, is where the Toonomancers of old realized that they could harness Lunium and what they could do with it. There's a Lunium rift hidden somewhere in the vaults. The vaults were built to protect the rift from nefarious individuals, and it seems like that may have failed. Andy is heading into the Hyqueous Vaults because the governor's Toon Squad is likely operating from here, and that's where they probably stashed Kylo, a new toon that they kidnapped. She's going to try and save him before it's too late. Sir Camisiprus Lasoniana is going into the vaults to try to figure out where this rift is and see if he can heal it to bring Lunium back into the lands, and that's where we're at. Now, they know where the vaults are because they have a map. Turtle gave them one, and Turtle was also presumably here before as well. So we're not going to roll to go a traveling. We're just going to roll to arrive. And in lieu of rolling to go a traveling, what I did was I just decreased our stamina by 1 for each one of our members. So you made it. We're going to roll intellect. We're going to say Gary is the one leading them right here. So Gary right here. Gary has an intellect of a D8. Let's see what we're dealing with. We got a 3. 3 is going to be a weak hit. It says you arrive but face an unforeseen complication. And we're also going to roll to see what the Lunium looks like in this area. And it's a 6. That's a 6. It says the place is vivid and bouncy. Your max Lunium is doubled. So we go from a 3 to a 6, from a 5 up to a 10, from a 1 to a 2, and from a 2 to a 4. Not bad. So in this area where the rift is, there's a larger amount of Lunium than there is outside of this area. Okay, makes sense. This is where the Lunium is going to be coming from. So, okay, cool. Now we've got an unforeseen complication. What is the unforeseen complication? I think the unforeseen complication is going to be that we bump into some Toon Squad members. Right at the edge of the forest here, before Gary leads the individuals into this clearing, Area 1, the clearing, we see a couple of Toon Squad members coming out of the Hyqueous Vaults. They are exiting, and there are 4 of them exiting. We also see a few individuals coming from this west side here from the forest, and they are going to be entering the vaults. And how many do we see entering the vaults? We are going to have 4. So we have essentially, it looks like a shift change or something. 4 coming out, 4 going in. And we have got, right here, we've got our Toon Squad members coming out and in. Now they greet each other, and they greet each other in kind of an interesting way, I would say. They take off their shoes and socks and start rolling around on the ground, and they tickle each other, right? That's how the Toon Squad members are going to greet each other. They're tickling and they're giggling. Gary and the rest of the group are kind of confused by this, but okay. And while they're doing this, they are giggling so much and tickling so much and wiggling their little legs so much that an object falls out of one of their pockets. Now, they don't know it because they're having such a good time giggling that they don't realize that they dropped something. Toon Squad members put on their shoes and socks again and then kiss each other on the mouth before they leave. We've got one group that moves through the eastern forest that were leaving the vaults, and the ones that were coming from the west head into the vault. They walk into the creek and disappear into the darkness. Now, Sir Camisiprus Lasoniana notices that they dropped something, and he goes and he picks it up. And what he picks up is a black iron key, and he picks up a parchment. It's got the words Ring of Fireballs written on it. Could be useful later, so he stores both of those in his pockets for later. And now we are dungeon crawling. We're doing it. We are in the Hyqueous Vaults. For real. So this first area right here, nothing to crawl. It's just a straight shot. Each one of these boxes is going to be 10 feet. And we have light at our back. So, they just walk straight in. There's nothing really interesting happening right there. We've got about 2 feet deep of water and a tunnel that juts up about 8 feet above us. There's some stalactites and they're dripping. It's a wet cave. They come around this corner and the light is going to diffract around the corner. So we still have light at our back. They come around the second corner, this little S-shaped curve here. The light is reflecting off the walls, but it's diffuse reflection. So we wind up losing some of that light. So the party gets to the end of this S-trap here, and here's what we're going to say. We're going to start counting our dungeon turns. So we're in dungeon turn 1 right here. We've got 40 feet of movement, we're going to say, per turn. We've got a light source. So Sir Chemisippus Lawsoniana has a glow frog lantern. It's a lantern, and he takes a glow frog out of a carry pouch that he has, and he places the glow frog in the glow frog lantern. Glow frog lanterns are a step up above an oil lantern because they can provide 6 hours of light versus just 4. The problem is the glow frogs operate by croaking and glowing. They croak and then they glow, or they glow and then they croak. Nobody's quite solved that yet. What came first, the cloak or the grow? The cloak or the glow. But nevertheless, it's going to be slightly annoying to have these constant croaking. So we got 10, 20, 30, we got 40 feet. That's going to take us to, after our first turn, area number 2 here, the boat dock. So when we enter the boat dock, we see 2 boats that are docked, right? Believe it or not, at the boat dock, 2 boats that are docked. So Chemisippus Lawsoniana is going to hop up on this ledge right here, and he's going to walk around into turn 2 now. So we're going into turn 2. Everyone's going to take an action. He is going to try to have a look over here at this door. He sees a door right here. He's got 40-ish feet of light, so we can see essentially this whole area. We see a hallway that we can't see down. We see another door to the north. Gary is going to take a look-see at these 2 boats, and as Sir Chemisippus Lawsoniana comes towards this door, he's going to hand his glow frog lantern to Superdu, and he's just going to say, stay here and just hold this. And Superdu is almost useless, but he can hold things. So he's holding that lantern. As Sir Chemisippus Lawsoniana, who doesn't do nicknames, is listening to this door to see if he can hear anything on the other side of it, Gary is taking a look at these 2 boats. He notices that the northernmost boat is wet, and he sees wet footprints leading north from it. He also sees a half-eaten raw fish, and carved in the boat in Goblin is property of Redbeck's. And he can read Goblin, so he knows what that says. Immediately, he's going to pull back and he's going to look to Sir Chemisippus Lawsoniana, and he says, hey man, we got goblins. I think it would be best for us to take these 2 boats, head down the creek, and then they're going to have a hard time following us. Sir Chemisippus Lawsoniana isn't able to hear anything on the other side of this door because Gary won't shut up. He's in his ear. He also disagrees with him, right? The goblins might not want the Toon Squad people here either, and we can ally with them. We can make an alliance. We can gather some information. We don't want to just start stealing things and making enemies when we don't know what's going on down here. And as they're arguing back and forth about this, they hear some banging. And they look and they say, where's Andy? And she is at area 8 already, and she is knocking on a door. And immediately they're like, why did we bring a kid? So Gary pulls out his rapier and he gets ready. Sir Chemisippus Lawsoniana gets his sword ready. Superdu's cracking his neck and getting ready because they just announced themselves essentially to the entirety of the dungeon. Fun. Andy does say, well, it did say knock first, and the door does say knock first on it. So in her defense, she did what the door asked her to do. Great. So in area 8, we have a peephole in this spy door. And the peephole opens, and then it shuts abruptly. And then we hear a series of clicking. And the door opens ajar. There's a tall individual, skinny individual inside the room, and there's a couple of candles that are lit within the room. It's dimly lit, but it's enough to kind of see what's going on in there. And you can see some furs on the ground, and a couple of maybe cabinetry along the side of the room. The individual introduces himself as Zerand, and he says, "Welcome to Redbeck's Curiosities shop. Please come in. How can we assist you?" And he says, "All right, okay." And she just starts walking in. Gary immediately kind of grabs her, and he goes in with her. Rapier is still drawn. Zerand assures him that you don't need that here. This isn't a fencing tournament. Let's take it easy. Superdu heads in with the glow frog lantern, but Sir Camisiporus Lawsoniana is going to hang back. He's going to hang back, and the reason why is because he knows that a door can be your best friend or your worst enemy. So he's going to stand in this doorway, and Zerand is immediately, a little bit curious about that. And he says, "You too, sir. You can come on in here." And he says, "No, I'm gonna stay put." Andy says, "Curiosity shop. The only thing I am curious of here is what is going on with these Toon Squad individuals." So she's going to talk to Zerand. She's going to ask him a question. She's going to try and learn more, and she's going to try and learn more about the Toon Squad. She's going to try and see what he knows about them, where are they coming from, where are they going in these caverns. So she is going to roll intellect. She's got a d6. She rolls a 2. 2 is going to be a weak hit. What you discover twists things a bit or uncovers a new threat. I'm going to say it twists things a new bit. He tells her that the Toon Squad travel deeper into the caverns. Okay, we do our business at the front part of the caverns because if we were deeper in the Hyqueous Vaults, everybody would die before they got to us. So this way people can come in, buy some wares from us, and leave. So the Toon Squad is going to be deeper in. If you want to go there, you're probably going to need a boat, he says. And then he's going to give her a rumor as well. Now, the last time we rolled on the rumor table, we rolled a d4, so we're going to step it up to a d6 this time, and we rolled a 6. Our 6 is an adventuring party may have found a new Lunium source, and they are missing. It's partially true. We don't know what part is true. An adventuring party may have found a Lunium source. So I'm going to mark off 2 progress here. I'm going to mark off 1 progress from Andy. She found out that there are deeper into this cavern Toon Squad members. So she knows she's on the right trail. And Sir Camisiporus Lawsoniana found out that there's an adventuring party that may have found a Lunium source. So the rift is in here somewhere, or there could be multiple rifts. Cool. We like that. Zerand is going to push them, cajole them, prod them from Area 9 into Area 10. He points a stick at the door right here, and they hear a bunch of clicks again, and then the door opens ajar. They notice 2 things as soon as this room opens. The first thing is a heat wave smacks them into the face. There's a lot more candles in this room and some sconces that are lit, so it's quite a bit of light and heat in here. And second is a wet dog smell. It's kind of off-putting. And he says, "You guys could have at least cleaned up before we came here." Zerand chuckles at that and shows them into Area 10. He says, "This is Redbeck's Curious Wares shop." They were in kind of a holding area, waiting area before. There's a large table with a cloth strewn about it. There's some cupboards and some crockery around, some oddities, some wares on display. Jars, clocks that are ticking, and the like. Andy follows him in. Gary follows him in. We'll say Superdu does as well. And the only thing I think worse for Sir Camisiporus Lawsoniana than getting a door jammed behind them is getting split from the party. So he's going to try and jam this door. He's going to take a piton that he has. He's not going to be able to stab it into the wall or anything and really wedge this thing shut, but he's going to stick it in the in between the door and the hinge to kind of stop it from shutting all the way. Then he's going to hustle, and he's going to get into Area 10, and he's going to stand in that doorway as well. Now this back door opens, no clicking, no locks, no nothing, and this very large, misshapen, disproportionately sized individual comes in. Huge, long arms that are grotesque in nature. He's got warts and nodules and all different kinds of nasty things all over his body. This individual creeps through the door. He lurks through, and he has to kind of move through sideways to even fit. And as he steps up, this 10-foot tall ceiling can't avoid his grasp. He's lurched over and hunched, but his shoulders are still rubbing and scratching against the ceiling, and rocks and bits are falling off from it. He's a troll, and he introduces himself as Redbeck. He's the troll merchant Redbeck of Redbeck's shop. And before he can say anything, Zirin comes up to him and he kind of whispers in his ear, and he shakes his head, he nods. He's like, so you guys are heading deep into the vaults. You guys are going to need a boat. He yells it over his shoulder. And then this open door behind him that he left open, this door right here, they see movement. And they hear movement. They hear feet clattering. Superdu kind of like holds the glow lantern up, and they can see goblins moving back and forth. He said, you're going to need some poles to steer the boat. You're going to need some lanterns, some flasks of oil. He just starts rattling off a list of things that they're going to need to move deeper into these dungeons. And he says, we don't need any of those things. He's like, what we need is answers. And what she is going to do is she is going to try, is she going to try and ask him a question too? She's going to try and ask him a question. Let's see if she can. She's going to try and ask a question of Redbeck now. What does he know about the Toon Squad? And not only that, she says, have you seen a small human with them? They're taken prisoners. He's somebody with like a snow globe for a head, essentially. He's got like a fish bowl. We're rolling intellect, and we're rolling a d6. Now she rolls a 1. A 1 is a miss. We do have stamina, so let's use one of our stamina. Now we're at 0 stamina for Andy. And we've rolled a 6. It's another miss. The information you uncover undermines your intentions or is uncomfortable. And that sucks. I think it is uncomfortable, and I think the reason it's uncomfortable is because Redbeck, if we read his description, he's a giant troll that sells items for exorbitant prices, and he extorts customers. So he's not a good guy, and he is used to bargaining and dealing, and he's not going to give up any information for free. It's uncomfortable because he says, I did see a boy, actually, that fits that description, and I do know quite a bit about these Toon Squad members. But it's going to cost you. Now, he looks at the group, and he understands this information is a lot more important to them than money. So 2 things happen. That sucks. Do we want to roll into that sucks table? I don't think we do. I think we know the most obvious negative outcome. I think the most negative obvious outcome is he's going to ask for something ridiculous. He's going to ask for, right here. This is what he's going to do. He's going to ask for Gary's sword. He says, that's a really nice sword. He notices the pommel. He notices the hilt. He notices the craftsmanship that goes into it, the sapphires and the silver that are adorning it. And he says, I'll take that sword off your hands, and I'll tell you exactly where you can find your friend. Andy is immediately like, hey, give him the sword. Gary's like, you want the sword? And he pulls it out, and he points it right at him. He says, I'll give you the sword for free. And that is not a good look. That's not a good look, because now I think the situation is going to get drastically worse. Redbeck is going to snap his fingers. And when he snaps his fingers, they immediately hear chains behind him in the hallway rattling. And they hear some snarling and some scraping against the floor and some grunting. So Camisiporus Lasoniana steps forward, and he grabs Gary by the shoulder, and he whispers to him, he's like, it's just a sword. He's like, we can get it back later. We can buy you another one. He's like, we don't need this right now. As he does that, the door slams shut behind him. And then they hear all the locks come back up. They look, and Zirin is sitting there with his little pointy stick, and then he puts it away for safekeepings. He leans back up against the wall and just waits to see how things unfold. Redbeck chuckles a little bit, and coming through the door are two large, furry beasts with ugly looking goblinoid kind of faces and goblin hands and feet, but then like a large wolf bear type body. These are two wargs that come through the door, and they've got a series of chains around a spiked collar, and these rusted chains, there's four of them, are being held by four goblins, and they are being held, right, they are barely holding on to it, by four goblins. These nasty beasts are snarling and snipping and like lunging towards them. Redbeck says, I'll take that sword now. I think Gary is going to lose his cool a little bit. Because that speaks to his character. I think he's going to, right? I think he's going to lose his cool just a little bit, and I think he's going to give up something else instead. He's getting pushed and prodded by Andy and Sir Camisiparus Lasoniana, and now Redbeck asking him again, and he says, why don't we just give him the prime rod instead? And when he says that, Ziren's ears perk up. Right, he's leaning against the wall nonchalantly, and he immediately kind of jumps forward. Redbeck says, a prime rod? He's like, another one? He's like, I already got two of those. He's like, no, I want the sword. I think Andy notices this and sees that this could be a situation for her to step in at. She's done asking questions. Could she ask a favor? Let's see if she could ask a favor. While Redbeck is trying to negotiate about the sword, Andy is going to ask Ziren a favor. She's going to try and charm him. We're going to roll presence, and we're going to see if she can charm him. Her presence right now is going to be a D4. She notices that his ears perk up at the mention of this prime rod, and she thinks she might be able to use this to her advantage. She rolled a 2. 2 is going to be a strong hit. On a strong hit, they do what you want, or share what they know, take +1 stamina. That's going to be useful. So now we've got 1 stamina. And that is it. She is going to ask Ziren. She's going to lean in. She's going to say, listen, I don't like this Redbeck guy. I can tell you don't either. And he's probably got some wares back in that back room that you probably have had your eye on for a while. And she's spot on. Because Ziren is not loyal to Redbeck, it says in our book here. Why is he not loyal to him? Well, he talks to her and he says, the guard post at the beginning, Area 3, the guard post has a bunch of goblin elites in there. He's like, and I essentially can't escape. I'm waiting for the right time to leave. He's like, if you guys can get me out of here, we can take a back exit. He's like, I can get you guys out of this situation. And she says, yeah, of course. So Ziren heads up to Redbeck. He's going to whisper something in his ear. Redbeck starts chuckling a little bit. He calls off the wargs. He snaps his finger. They get rid of them. And he says, listen, he's like, I'm going to give you guys one better. I'm going to give you guys a guide, a goblin guide who knows these tunnels, who knows these ways. He's going to take you guys the back route to your Toon Squad individuals. And all I'm asking in return, you're not going to get a boat. You're not going to get the supplies. He's like, I'm going to keep the supplies. You don't need it anyway. He's like, what you need is a guide, and what I need is one of your glow frogs. So Camisiparus Lasoniana has 3 glow frogs, so he can give him one of them. Why not? And Redbeck chuckles a little bit more. He says, here's your guide. So he gives them a goblin, little goblin dude. Here's the little goblin dude. And then Redbeck heads back out the door that he came into Area 12, and he stomps out, and you can hear him stomping and chuckling as he moves. Ziren says, I'll show you guys out. He unlocks the first wizard-locked door, and they start walking into the next area. As they get into Area 9, before they get out, Ziren waves his hand, and a purple mist comes out of his hand, knocking the goblin out. He says, we got to act fast. He's like, they're setting up an ambush for you guys. They're trying to lead you into a pretty dangerous foray, and we need to get you out of here quickly. Now, Gary, Super Dude, they don't really know what's going on. Sir Chemisiporus Lawsoniana picked up on it when he saw Andy talking, and he kind of gives her a little smirk, like, hey, good job, kid. So while they're setting up the ambush, right, while they're heading around this way and coming down this hallway, and while they're communicating with the goblins here to set up an ambush in this hallway, Zirand takes them back into Area 10, unlocks the wizard lock door that goes into the storage room, and they head into the storage room. He says, if you guys are interested in prime rods, there are 2 more in here, and you're going to need those. He knows he's a wizard. He knows that they're going to be doing something with the rift. He knows that they could use the prime rods more than him. He's grabbing some scrolls. He's grabbing some potions. He's filling his arms up with everything that he can grab. Super Doo heads in, and he grabs the 2 prime rods. When he grabs the 2 prime rods, they head out. As they head out the door, an alarm is set off, right? When Redbeck and the goblins realize that there's nobody in that hallway, they start clanging some handheld bells. Ding, 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 and they're ringing them. And they can hear Redbeck growl, ah, and then start stomping. Zirand's going to lead the party through Area 10 really quickly. We're going to say that this whole thing takes a series of turns. We're going to say it takes 2 turns. He's going to lead them through Area 10, through Area 12, which is essentially just a workroom. They're going to burst through this door here, and they're going to see a horrific sight. Redbeck kind of like on all fours, crawling through this hallway to get them. The 2 wargs are behind him, and they're barking and they're hollering and they're biting and nipping, but they can't get past him through the hallway. And he's got a bunch of goblins kind of on his shoulders and crawling under him and everything. It's just this mass writhing ball of angry individuals coming at him. Zirand says, go left! And the party is darting down this hallway. The only light source they have is the glow frogs, and it's shaking and it's moving, and they're getting kind of like a strobe light effect as they move through the hallway. As soon as they get to the end of the hallway, they bump into another individual. Slam face first into a wiry, noodle-armed individual, and it's Mibs! It's Mibs, back from the dead! They bump into him, and they don't know who Mibs is. He doesn't know who they are. But immediately, Zirand is saying to run south. Mibs is saying, like, I've got to go north. And they kind of like grab Mibs with them, like just this ball of individuals running through this hallway. And they pick Mibs up and they just start booking down this hall. They continue running. They're getting chased. Can they avoid danger and get into a safe spot? We got a bunch of rooms in this complex down here. Can they find a door? And can they get away from the wrath of Redbeck? I'm going to say, who is leading the charge? I'm going to say Super Doo. Super Doo hasn't done much for us yet. I'm going to say Super Doo is like behind everybody, and he's kind of pushing them. So he's the one kind of like throwing everybody forward. And he is going to use power, because that's what he does, to see if he can get them down this hallway quickly. And he rolls a 4, and a 4 is going to be a failure. Super Doo does have a lot of stamina, though, so let's try and re-roll that bad boy. And let's see if he can get us down there. And he rolls a 2! There's our strong hit. Let's go, Super Doo. I knew you could do it. He's going to push them down this hallway really quickly. At that, we are going to call it a session. Mibs is alive! He's here. He's kicking. And Redbeck is angry. And it is not going to be the last that we see of him. Mibs, you crazy, crazy silly goose, you. If you like what you saw, leave a comment. If you didn't like what you saw, leave a comment. And then thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Until next time.